Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota's 5th District has been facing controversy over past tweets about Israeli politics. The Black and White asked Jewish and Muslim students about the controversy's religious and political implications, as well as their experiences at Whitman regarding their faith.
Yes. Whether she meant it or not, I believe they were definitely anti-Israel, which is a whole other thing. But I think that the all about the Benjamins comment was, if not anti-Semitic, just insensitive and not something she should have done.
No, not really. The first thing where she was just criticizing Israel, that's not anti-Semitic at all. As a Jew, I criticize Israel all the time because it's something I need to do. And there's a way to criticize Israel without being anti-Semitic, which is, I think the all about the Benjamins thing, that wasn't a critique of Jews, that was a critique of how, capitalistic the system between Israel and America is, and that was an AIPAC criticism. It wasn't for Jews. Then she said that slightly dual citizenship thing, and I was a little iffy on that Ilhan quote. But honestly, I've decided that her motives are not anti-Semitic, and I think sometimes it's really hard to criticize Israel without sounding anti-Semitic.
So I think that she was just really trying to advocate for a free Palestine, but she was in no way being anti-Semitic. It had nothing to do with her expressing any hatred or racism or discrimination towards people of the Jewish faith. I think this is more poignant to the conflict between Israel and Palestine.
I think they were anti-Semitic because they appeal to age-old tropes that say that Jews control the world, Jews are bribing the government to support their agenda. Yeah.
I don't really think it was Islamophobic. It could be taken as Islamophobic, but I think they were mixing up religion and political conflicts basically. So it's the Ilhan Omar thing, Ilhan Omar was not in favor of Israel, she's in favor of Palestine, and she wants it to be independent, and then many people took that as anti-Semitic. And so now throughout history, anti-Semitism and Israel could be correlated, but they're not necessarily correlated, and I don't think that was the main focus of what she was saying.
I don't think they can be completely perceived as Islamophobic either, but I do think that she did not deserve the backlash that she got, because those were her views on a political conflict, as I said before, sorry being repetitive. But I don't think she should have been accused at all of being anti-Semitic or racist. But I think the reason why people were targeting her was not necessarily because, it may have had something to do with it, but I don't think it was necessarily because she's a woman of the Muslim faith or because she covers. I think it's just because people took what her comments were to be anti-Semitic.
Israel. I think Israel has a right to exist. Israel is important to me. Israel is important to my religion. I do not approve of the Israeli government. I do not approve of Netanyahu. I do not approve of the murder of Palestinians, obviously. I hope and think that Israel has a right to exist, and I hope for a two-state solution. I don't know what that solution would entail, but I don't really have the answers.
I don't like how Israel has been treating Palestine. I absolutely do not like what's been happening on the Gaza Strip. I think it's a humanitarian crisis at this point. They don't have food, they don't have water, it's a mess.
Well, it was kind of intended, Israel, to be a place where Jews could come and other faiths could come also, to be the homeland and a safe place where there weren't safe places elsewhere. And I just don't think that it's doing its role in providing that.
It's not the super targeted type, but it's maybe soft or implied Islamophobia, you could say. I was just saying, it's when somebody asks you, are you a terrorist, that's not exactly Islamophobia. You could just say that they're being silly, but then Islamophobia is kind of implied. And so, or you could just say reinforcing stereotypes about Islam is implied. And, but in general, it's like, okay.
I actually think we're very fortunate to live in an area like Bethesda and go to school like Whitman, where I really, although Islamophobia, people in other parts of even the state or the country definitely, Muslim youth definitely experience problems such as Islamophobia. I've never really felt like I've been targeted, or I've never really experienced much Islamophobia, racism, thank God.
To a certain extent, I think everyone has a right to talk about Israel. There's a lot of things going on outside of, religion, and I think it's a world issue that everyone kind of has a right to talk about and have some opinions.
Yeah, because it's a state. They're not like Netanyahu. Like, he's a politician. They're not. I don't think that. I mean, unless they're criticizing Israeli people who aren't like in the IDF or just Jews in general, because that's not. I mean, no one should just be blatantly anti-Semitic. But yeah, Israel is a state.
There are a lot of Jews at Whitman, and I think, there's kind of this weird camaraderie community thing with other Jews at Whitman. I don't know if it really plays a huge part, at least for me, in my everyday schooling. Maybe it's because I don't practice Judaism day to day. But yeah, I think there's a community. I think, we've been to each other's bat mitzvahs, but I don't know if it plays a huge part.
I think that there's always a lot of talk of anti-Semitism, and a lot of times I think that, like, almost every time, unless it's talking about like people who, I've been called anti-Semitic by like another Jew at Whitman for saying like I disagree with what Israel's doing, and like I think there's an important distinction that needs to be made between criticizing Israel and criticizing Jews, because one's okay and one isn't.
There are a lot of other Jews at Whitman, so I don't really feel out of place at all.
Sheltered a little bit from, because there are more Jews here than in other areas, but I think a lot of people don't really realize that there still is anti-Semitism, and it's just, like, it is present. Like, our synagogue got bomb threats, and like people make comments a lot about it that are stuff. Yeah, they're just kind of looked over.
At Whitman, okay, so Whitman is, you could say, a more welcoming school, and so it's like I'm like okay with being Muslim. Now it depends, like, I guess you could say Iman is much more confident about saying she's Muslim, and I'm less confident about saying. I'm not the person that'll hide it, right? But it's like I will not like sort of boast it. I'll be like, if somebody asks me, I'll tell them, but I won't like tell them.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's like you could, because I do fear sometimes that there might be like, oh my God, you're a terrorist or something.
Right.
And it's like I really cannot tolerate judgment. It's like if somebody's judging me, I'll like get really upset. So that's why I think Whitman treats Muslims well. There are some insensitive people, and I don't know. I do tolerate them, but it's really hard to.
So far, I feel like it's been pretty easy for me, at least, to balance being a Muslim and being a Whitman student and being an American teenager. I just think you need to. They're both sides that I need to interact with. You can't just not. So I'm part of the Whitman community. I am, American, and I would do any of the regular things that my fellow Whitman students would do. But then I also have this part of my identity, which is my faith and my religion, and it's a part that I don't like hiding personally. I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of, and those are my religious beliefs and my practices that that I engage in, and it's a pretty nice balance, thank God, for me.